All right, welcome to a new episode. I'm not waving at you. I'm just making sure my camera doesn't track my every single move as we kick off today's episode. If you already done so, like the episode, subscribe to the notification bell. Big thank you to Liftoff Agent for sponsoring the show. Today, we're going to go over to Texas, and we're going to meet with someone who's in the mortgage side of things, who's crushing it, doing an amazing job with his YouTube channel. Dan, what's up, man? Welcome to the podcast today.
What's going on?
We missed you yesterday. I know you had your appointment and whatnot. Everything go good on your side?
Signed 2 listings yesterday, so things were good.
Hey, let's go. Don't listen to the FUD. The market's doing amazing. Absolutely amazing. All right, so we're going to go ahead and bring the guy in. Come on, Mike Mills. What's up? Mortgage
How we doing,
finance.
guys?
He's on YouTube, channels below. Or there you go. Channels behind me, links below. And you just, Mike, took off. You had crypto on there. You're talking. Yeah,
I did.
Title, yeah. So he's like, let me take that off real quick. I was like, wait, tell me some more about that.
Well, I had it was actually weird. The girl I went to high school with, I found there's a thing called in Texas called the Texas Blockchain Council. And what it is it's an advocacy group. It's like a PAC that lobbies Texas legislatures on, passing laws that are friendly to cryptocurrencies and blockchain. And so it's kind of like my secondary hobby because, like I was telling you earlier, I really think in my space, in the mortgage world and lending, the blockchain and crypto is very much going to bleed into our world very soon. I mean, it's already with fractional ownership and tokenization of investment properties, you're already starting to see that happen. And so what I'm really trying to do myself is, obviously we still do mortgages and we do them great and all those kind of things, but our world's going to change. And so I'm trying to get as educated as I can and get as much information so I can create a bridge between the old world of lending and real estate to the new world, that I think is going to come on us in the next 10 to 15 years.
Interesting. All right, just random question.
Yeah.
Prediction. Like what do you see from what you've seen? How is it going to impact? I know we don't have a crystal ball. This isn't exact correct information, but I'm just curious. Like, what do you see and how is it going to shift and how in your mind are we transacting?
We'll appreciate this as a realtor. Okay. So think of it like this. This isn't crypto. This is blockchain. All right. So think about a company like D.R. Horton. All right. That builds a home. And when they build this home, they record the contractors, they record the cost of materials, they record when the house was built, how much it cost. All of that stuff is recorded on the blockchain. Okay. And the blockchain's immutable. It's verifiable. You can't change it because of the way the structure is set up. So now imagine that property gets sold, to somebody, and that deed, that already exists, but it's done in paper these days. And there is a digital form of a deed, but that deed becomes an NFT. And that deed is now recorded on the blockchain as well. So every single time that house changes hands, it gets recorded on the blockchain as a part of that NFT. So the NFT becomes the deed. All right. Now it's, all of this stuff has to have legislation passed. States have to be on board with this kind of thing. Like you can't do this overnight, but where it's going to impact in a situation like that is title insurance. Okay. So the entire role of a title company right now is to verify. Well, there's 2 roles. They're a third-party intermediary who they hold the money and distribute it. Right now, just imagine a smart contract that does that on everybody else's behalf, but we'll skip that part. Then you go to their secondary job, which is to verify ownership of the property, because they issue an insurance policy to a buyer to say that nobody's going to come back and make claims on this property, great grandmother that never verified the sale, whatever. So if we have all of the transactions for that property from the day of inception, from when it was built to today, why do you need title insurance?
You don't.
Interesting.
It's not there. And so when you look at what blockchain technology can do for real estate, specifically, you're going to see, and again, all of this takes legislation, all of this takes entities getting on board. But one of the conversations I was having today was, if you take a company again, like D.R. Horton. If we go to D.R. Horton and say, hey, D.R. Horton, guess what? Every single time this property is sold, you're going to get a 1% commission, because the NFT that you created for that deed, because you can program those NFTs to carry residual income through every single sale. So now D.R. Horton says, wait a minute. So you're telling me that every time this property is sold into perpetuity, I'm going to make 0.5%, 1%, or whatever the case may be? You don't think that they would get on board with that right away?
Why not?
I mean, it's money. So I do think that it's going to take time because like anything in government, it's like the Titanic and it just slowly turns and it's not going to happen overnight. But I don't envision a world where it's not going to happen. So my personal, I'm 44 years old. I'm not exactly like a spring chicken, but I'm planning on doing this for a long time. So if I want to position myself properly on what's going to happen in the future, then I want to get as educated on all this stuff as I can and learn all the possibilities. So then I can be myself a bridge from the old world to the new world and, create all sorts of opportunities that way. So that's why I'm elbow deep into this stuff.
Well, I don't want to go too deep here, Dan, but so if it's an NFT and there's fractional shares opportunities we're already seeing with NFTs and all the things, and you can buy fractional, whatever. Are you saying that there could be potentially a world where you own a home and if maybe you say, I don't know, like you get behind in your mortgage or some shit and you're like, I need cash. Can you fractionally share or sell your home and like that deed and like, I don't know. I'm just.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. The only problem with that situation is that you get into what's the entity that's backing the loan for that, right? And like the way it works now is technically, right? If I buy a house as an individual, all right, and I'm on the deed and I'm on the note, right, for the liability. Well, if I want to take that property and move it into an LLC, okay, as the owner, I can do that. There's nothing that says that I can't, except there is a clause in every single mortgage that is called a due on sale clause. And if the title changes, the lender can issue a due on sale. All right. Well, if that clause is still there, then you can't just fractionalize your ownership out to other people because the lender can have a say in that. Right. Now, if we get to a place which is already happening, there are companies that are doing this, that are taking assets like Bitcoin, and if they can basically be a custodian of your Bitcoin and hold it essentially, and lend you money to buy a house with your Bitcoin. So you're basically leveraging an asset that you own to purchase. The problem with it right now is because crypto is so volatile that, one day Bitcoin's worth $40,000 and the next day it's worth 20. So the asset class is not stable enough yet to really have that be a true option yet. I think it's going to get there. And I think regulation will help that. And that's why I'm so excited in Texas, having a group like the Texas Blockchain Council that lobbies for this kind of stuff. I mean, in Florida, they've already said that DeSantis has said he's basically outlawing CBDCs, which are central bank digital currencies, which are the exact opposite of what we're trying to do with the decentralized world, because the central banks are saying, well, we want in on this game. What we want to do is we want to control all your money. We want to know where you spend it, who you spend it with, how it goes. And then if you're a criminal or we suspect you to be a criminal, this is how they couch it right now, then we can basically turn your money off. And so they've said in states like Florida that they're not going to allow that in their state. And they're trying to pass similar legislation in Texas. So the federal government can't come in with the central bank and tell us that, we're going to basically control all your money now. But that's where the blockchain and digital currencies and all that stuff plays on the other side of it, because it's decentralized and people control it.
Wow. All right.
Like I told you, I'm a nerd on this stuff, man.
Dude, I didn't expect all that.
Yes. This is a topic I pay a lot of attention to.
I think I was just actually talking about something that's related to this, which is that the due on sale clause, I'm an investor, so we do subject to transactions, and the subject to transaction, there's risk in it that the due on sale clause is going to be, but a lot of times they're not tracking where that deed has been transferred. So
they don't. People do it all the time. They switch stuff into LLCs and there's never any issues. The issue, all it is if you don't pay your mortgage and then the bank's like, oh, you switched it to an LLC. Okay, well now we have a due on sale to collect and we can foreclose on you immediately. That's the only that's the only time it's really executable or where they actually use it. Because people transfer properties into LLCs all the time.
Yep. Interesting. Wow. Yeah. Well, we had what Contortion, right? So have you heard of Contortion and them and what they're doing with the blockchain side of things? No. Yeah. So we had an episode all around blockchain technology, and Contortion is actually doing that. They're going after the MLSs, and they're working on relationships, and they patent the blockchain technology to be able to help with this process. So if you're listeners out there, you could check that out. What episode that was? I'll make sure to put that episode. what was it, Dan? I think Katorsia. Was that correct? Let's go to our channel and double check. But
there is so much there's another thing that is happening in the Midwest. And I read about this, and I always am careful to say, oh, this is definitely because I read about it once and I've told this story 5 times. So I get confused whether or not it's, if I, changed it in my mind, but basically there are farmers in the Midwest, okay, that have like, corn crops and, soy and all this other stuff, not the big guys, but the independent guys. And they've created their own blockchain co-op insurance. So what they've done is every month they pay a policy premium into the blockchain, into a smart contract. And the smart contract is then it's got an oracle, which is what feeds data into smart contracts. And it takes the data and it says, okay, if there's a certain amount of rainfall or a certain drought, or if there's been a report of like, mold or different diseases or fungus that hit crops, then all of this data is input into the smart contract. And if your region where you have your farm is affected, you automatically get a payout. And so they've basically created their own farm insurance essentially without the need of a Farmers or State Farm or Liberty Mutual. Like it's gone. So the need for that third party, that's what blockchain has done. And it's eliminated, or it is eliminating the need for third parties. And that's why, like in real estate specifically, when we look at title, when we look at lending, I mean, there's going to be a day where someone can go, well, it already exists really, where they can go online, they can fill out all their information. We're getting so close with underwriting and, the automated systems that already exist, that to say that we need to worry about, really and truly underwriters are slowly becoming irrelevant as well, because you put enough data into a system and it can give you a pretty good result without the need, self-employment income. But I mean, again, it's all in tax returns. There's not a whole lot of stuff that isn't easily determined via, using data. Because right now, all we do is use humans to double check. That's all it is when it comes to lending. Underwriter's job is to double check that everything that I put in the 1003 is accurate. That's their job.
I think with appraisals is going to change the game too, because I was just at a new construction house, brand new house. I'm like, the appraiser shows up and I was like, how long do you think until your job is completely eliminated? And he's like, well, what do you mean? And I was like, they can hire somebody to go to shoot like a Matterport or a 3D model of the house, which has accurate measurements. That's what you're doing right now. They can also take pictures of that. I'm doing it for Astroom. If you're familiar with that company, I do.
Shout out.
Yeah. I have made a good relationship with the corporate. They'll pay me $100 to do an hour's worth of work. And I just eliminated half your job as an appraiser.
Yep.
What happens when it becomes blockchain? And now they can just look at, okay, this community, this bedroom, bathroom square footage. Hey, homeowner, tell me what you've done to it.
Yep.
Boom.
I mean, that's where everything's headed. But see, here's the thing is like, even with real estate in particular, and I tell this to all the agents that we work with, I don't think it's going to bleed all the way into realtors, because here's the thing is you could today, the technology exists where I can go online, I can schedule a showing, I can show up to that showing. There's a camera, ring door camera, whatever. There's an automatic lockbox. I can put in a code. It'll kick out the key. There's cameras all throughout the house. I can walk through. I have a window of time. Let's call it 45 minutes to an hour to walk through the property. There's questions. There's iPads where you can answer these questions that show up, right? You can walk back out. You can click on the iPad. I want to put an offer in, right? That technology is there. It absolutely exists. Okay. But what doesn't exist in that world is the ability for someone to go, why are there 30 cars parked up and down this street, right? This house is really nice, but I see every driveway has 6 cars in the driveway. Well, I don't necessarily want that, right? And what happened to this park that's up the street? I see construction going on. What's going on there? Oh, they're putting in a power plant or, whatever. So the locality of real estate, meaning everything is, that's why when you see you said FUD earlier about the real estate market, there are parts of the country that are suffering. West Coast is having a really hard time right now. Okay. But in Texas, we're still going like gangbusters. There's still not enough houses. So real estate is local. It's very, very local. And you need a realtor to tell you what's happening in the market, what's happening in the neighborhood. We just did there's a Arlington Board of Realtors where I live in Dallas, Fort Worth, and in the city of Arlington where the Dallas Cowboys live. the Arlington Board of Realtors here, we just did a Own Your Market seminar where we had an agent, had a title guy, and a community or Chamber of Commerce guy, and they all came in, and our topic of conversation was how important it is to understand everything that's happening in the market that you're in, because that's the place that the realtor value has gone dramatically up, is understanding their market, and then also being able to communicate that to people via channels like this, like social media. So you can get out there and put the word out to people because they see you as an expert in that market. And that's what we try to tell the agents that we work with, that you have to get better at, pushing your expertise in the area that you work in and letting people know so they reach out to you when they're ready to buy.
Yeah. You're speaking Dan's language. I mean, he's the expert. You go to Oregon, he's the guy, him and his team, and they have billboards to content specifically focused in the area that he serves. And I mean, I witnessed it. You got phone calls from investors that want to go from California to his market, and they watch him on YouTube.
Especially relocation these days. I mean, and that's another thing with Texas. We have so many people that have moved in here. I think if you look on the graphs, it's like, I think Florida's number 1, and I think we're number 2. Tennessee might be mixed in there somewhere as well. But that whole our entire market has been based off of people moving in here. So if someone's moving from California or moving from New York or Florida to Texas, and you don't have a social presence and you don't have any of your, you're highlighting your community online, they're not going to find you. And that's a huge part of the market right now.
That's authority. I tell everybody, like, you could be the number 1 realtor transaction volume. Everyone knows you, offer referrals, and you've been in the business 30 years, but here comes a young guy that just like pounds out tons of content with tons of authority, and they will scale faster than it took you 30 years to do it. They'll do it in 3.
And truly, like, the hard part was being an old guy like myself. It took a minute for me to understand the importance of social media, because I don't know how you guys are, but prior to doing what I do more so now, I never really spent a ton of time on social media. Like I wasn't on Facebook. I wasn't on Twitter. I was on YouTube because I was looking up stuff like crypto. I was trying to learn what I could, but I didn't spend a lot of time on the true social apps, the Instagrams and that of the world. And so until I started understanding, the importance of being in front of people, because like the analogy I use is, you have 24 hours in the day. Everybody does. It's the most democratic thing on the planet. And it's how you use those 24 hours that separate you from everybody else. Well, I'm a lender and I target and sell primarily to realtors. And if I'm going to target realtors, well, the old school way is we go to lunch and we go to happy hour and we go do some kind of seminar event. Well, I may be there for 2 hours and I talk to 3 people maybe, or 1 person if I went to lunch, right? Whereas if I can get on YouTube and I can talk about the market and talk about whatever, I might be able to reach 500 agents at the same time. So it's a numbers game and it's a use of time. So like when I first got in to start doing more on social, I've been a mortgage guy for about 12 years, almost 13. But I've only really been doing social heavy for like the last 2. And of course the pandemic, like everybody else, like I'm at home. I'm like, what the hell am I going to do? I got to make sure I get in front of people. So the reason I got this whole setup is I started doing podcasting, and I think it's important that people find their lane. Right. So I'm not going to stand in front of a house and point at things as they do play and dance. And like, it's just not my jam. Like I'm not going to do that. Right. But what I do like to do is I like to talk and I like to conversate with people, and I like to find out what they know and share my ideas and see if I can learn more from them. And so I was like, how do I do that? Because that's my strength, and still promote myself on social media without having to do all the stuff that you see. Right. Yeah. And so the reason I started doing the podcast was because I would love to talk to agents, title people, insurance, roofers. I've had contractors on. I've had nutritionists, because, as a realtor, if you're out there on the go all the time, taking care of your body is really important. So all of these things that kind of fit, in that sphere a little bit. So I can sit down and have an hour-long conversation with somebody. And out of that conversation, I can then take that video and I can clip it up into 15 or 20 pieces of content that I can then permeate out as much as I can. Mm-hmm. The hard part is in this learning process is I've gotten good at the podcast side. I'm just now starting to figure out how to do the editing side and make it time efficient, which is the big challenge.
Yeah. Huge.
Outsource.
Yes. Yes. Well, but then it's hard to find the right outsource because some people do okay and some people don't, so it's like it's like hiring people, right? You hire people, you're like, oh, this person's going to be great. And then 6 months later, you're like, oh, why did I hire that guy?
No,
yeah.
I totally get it.
Yeah.
No.
100%. That podcast episode, just for the guests out there, was called How to Leverage Blockchain in Real Estate with Teresa, episode 167. And I want to say it was Contortia. I believe it was the name of the company. So if y'all want to check it out, watch it.
His name, so that
I'll be
might
checking that one out for sure.
Yes, that could have been a normism. I'm not going to lie here. So reading and writing is not my forte. But speaking of what you talked about as far as content, I mean, I know, Dan, you do a great job with interviewing your vendors. And like, honestly, a lot of Dan's content is just like not even really cut, just put out raw, right? Yeah. Authentic, raw. This is what it is. I mean, and you've had success with that, right, Dan? People giving you a call, reaching out just from content you're putting out there. Hit play.
Yeah, like the more polished, I am on a journey to become more polished with it and have more editing, and we have that in the works for Q3. But the performance and how tailored packaging it up and making it look pretty is going to only get you so far. It's the law of diminishing returns. Like it being professional, yeah, you might land 1 or 2 more clients because of that, but the volume of content and the subject matter of the content, I think, will far exceed how polished it is.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, especially with agent attraction, I don't even want to call it recruiting because I don't actually recruit. The agent attraction for my own team is that somebody's like, hey, I've been following you on Instagram. Oh, hey, I went to your investment seminar. I want to be on your team. And so it organically, because I'm constantly creating that content, it's bringing me like one person trickling in all the time. And there's a cost involved to that. Your time, your equipment, your bandwidth, your advertising and promotion and all that. And so you do have to look at that from a return on investment analysis. But the thing I wanted to say is that the biggest hurdle is I see a ton of agents, ton of mortgage brokers, tons of people in this business that will spend $10,000 to make it look super pretty, but their content sucks.
Yes. Well, but that goes back to what I was saying a minute ago about staying in your lane, because I think people have to find what they're good at. And like I was giving my story because some people are great at here's this house and they do the run through and they show the property. I mean, if you look on Instagram, those will get hundreds of thousands of views, and that's great, but you're not highlighting yourself. You're just highlighting the property. And it's like, what's the goal? Like, what are you trying to do? And for like the podcast stuff on my side, I don't really get wrapped up in how many people view it or how many downloads I get or any of that stuff, because for me, and this is what I tell agents coming into the market when they're just starting to do social media, I'm like, don't think of social media as I'm trying to find this stranger that's going to call me because they saw some video I made about first-time homebuyer tricks or whatever. Think of it as all of the people that I already know, that I'm already friends with, that I already interact with. I need those people to see my face as often as possible. So when they decide they want to buy or sell a house, they're going to call me, right? Or do a loan in my case. So for me, I think when you're starting, if you're not trying to become an influencer, which I'm not, I'm just trying to stay in front of the people in my community and trying to give some level of value for my service to say, hey, not only am I going to do your loan great, but I'm also going to do these other things. And we try to help agents create social presences and that kind of thing. But at the end of the day, you have to do what you're comfortable with, because if you're not comfortable and it's not authentic, it's not going to do well either way. So, and sometimes you just got to ease into it a little bit. And some people are great at, I tell people, get involved in something that you like. We have a local agent here that is really big into like animal adoption. And so the vast majority of the videos that he does are all about dogs and cats at the shelter and he talks about real estate, but not a lot, a little bit here and there. So, but the key is you're just trying to stay in front of people. How many eyeballs can I get to see me on a regular basis? I'm not trying to get the random person I've never met to call me, nor sometimes, especially for the, the lady agents out there, that's not the safest thing in the world either. You're just trying to get in front of people that you already know, that already trust you, and stay top of mind. And that needs to be the first and foremost goal with any social media platform or plan.
Yeah.
I love that.
Evergreen content. I also like to talk about like your ability to create evergreen content versus just fizzle out marketing, which is like you shoot a reel you're 80 people see it, or 150 people see it, or 10,000 people see it, but they don't remember it. And it's not sitting out there for people to search constantly unless they're really going deep on the platform. So making sure you have a good balance of evergreen content versus content that you can recycle. A lot of times I shoot a YouTube video. It's the same YouTube video that gets placed into the email marketing that I do.
Yep.
And then, all of that stuff is kind of strategically moved around. And I even just did a revamp because of the rebrand. We went from 90 or 103 videos back down to 13. And wow. I rebranded like from 13 back up to 35. And then like my whole downsizing playlist, I'm reshooting every single video for better performance. Wow. And then attaching that to direct mail in a QR code for the direct, like the ideal client who's getting this.
That's awesome. So, well, and you say the direct mail thing, that is a place that I think is being not utilized as much as it should be, because if you check these days,
the right way,
your mailbox is empty. Like you don't get mail anymore. And so if you have a really cool direct mail piece that links to something online, like social, like you're talking about, that has such an impact. I mean, I have an agent that I did a podcast with recently here in Burleson, and she was talking about how she did her surveys, and that with her Google SEO, if you type in Burleson real estate, she is number one every single time, because what she did is she would use direct mail, and she would, do like little pop buys and stuff too. But her main goal was to get every single one of her clients to fill out a survey, because if they filled out a survey and posted it onto Google, then she would get top billing on pretty much any time someone is looking for real estate in that area. And it does a crazy amount of business every single year, but she focused on that one thing for a period of time. Now she's very process oriented and has she manages like 400, she has a 400 property management, group that she does. It's like her husband and her son, because this chick is just dialed in. But the impressive part of all this is that she's so process oriented and so focused. But when she gets onto one thing, like she was working on the survey thing, she did that one thing and she did it perfectly. It took her like a year to get her process down and get everything where she wanted it to. But now it's like clockwork and she doesn't have to work on it. And so I think people scatter shoot so much. They try to do this and they try to do that, and then this doesn't work and that doesn't work. It's like, just stay consistent with something that you feel confident that you're good at, and you will get better at it, and business will come from it, at least in my opinion.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that.
On Zillow.
So true.
All right. Shameless plug. I think that's the biggest thing, is like creating your own marketing ecosystem, whatever you're spending money on, testing it. Yeah. A/B testing it is super important. But you can't be a one-trick pony. Like I've seen so many top agents in my market just crumbling right now.
Yeah.
I'm like, where's your number one lead source? Oh, it's Zillow. How's the calls doing? There's none.
Yeah.
Wow.
You don't have direct mail going. You don't have YouTube going. You don't have a social media presence. You don't do any email marketing. You don't pay for leads to build a database. You don't do any community events. No one knows who you are anymore. The only thing they knew about you is when they dialed for a property, you or somebody on your team was showing them the property.
Yep.
That's it.
Yeah, it's tough when, if you don't have, I think you need to get good at things, but you have to diversify. But it's like there's the jack of all trades, but master of none. But then there's a carryover to that I think goes, but it's better to be a master of all or something. There's a second, I butchered it. There's a second part to that statement, but what it's saying is, like, in many cases, it's good to be, or it's much better to be good at several things than be great at one particular thing, especially if that one particular thing, like if you're Michael Jordan, you're the best basketball player on the planet, great, right? But if you're like every other human on this world and you're, not particularly fantastic at any one thing, then you need to be pretty good at a lot of different things. And it's even, when we work with agents to kind of help them grow their business, and one of the things that I'll always tell them is like, look, you don't need to be an expert in mortgages. You don't need to be an expert in title. You don't need to be an expert in insurance. Okay. But you need to know a little bit about all those things. Okay. Because the problem is that if I'm your client and I call you and I say, hey, Dan, rates have gone down. Is this a good time to refinance? You know what, Mike? I have no idea. Call my lender over here and he'll help you out. Okay, cool. Thank you. And then I call, hey, Dan, I got hail the other day. Do I call the insurance guy? Like I don't know anything about insurance, man. Call the insurance guy. Here's his number, blah, blah, blah. Okay. That's fine. And that method is okay. But my preferred method is, hey, Dan, I had a claim on my roof. What do I do here? Hey, Mike, you know what? I'm right in the middle of something. Let me give you a call back in 5 minutes. You hang up the phone, you call your insurance guy. Hey, what does the claim process look like? How do we do this? Blah, blah, blah. Then you call your guy back and you go, hey, here's what you need to do. Blah, 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 blah. Right. Give him the details. And not only you've accomplished two things. Number one is you've established yourself as the expert in your field of real estate, all things that encompass real estate, because that person knows every single time they call you, you're going to have an answer. You may not have all the answers, but you're going to have something. And the second thing you've done is if you gained your knowledge base. So now you've grown a little bit more. So the next time that question comes up, you don't have to call your insurance guy. He's going to have the answer. You're going to have the answer because you've answered it before. And you just slowly build yourself into, if you need something about real estate, landscaping, insurance, mortgage, whatever, call me. I'm your agent. I'm your guy. I'm going to be the one to help you. And then when we get into the weeds of, whatever that particular topic is, then you give your vendors. And so that's why it's so important when you pick vendors that you work with, that they're not people out looking for $1. If you call your insurance guy or your mortgage guy and they only answer your calls or return your calls when you say you've got a deal for them, and they never call you back when you have a question, that's not the right person, right? You got to find the person that's there to help you and bring value to your business that isn't just you handing them a lead.
Yeah, being resourceful in this business is critical, and having a good grasp on most knowledge that is surrounding a house, right? It's like, here's a house. What could go wrong? Or who are you going to hire to service this house? How does property work? Like, there's so many real estate agents that are so focused on, like, I'm a great cold caller. I can book the appointment, but I know nothing about real estate.
Well, they choose not to. Yeah, they don't. They just, I think it's an old school mentality a little bit, because a lot of the, older agents that I work with, they're like, they always say, well, I'm not a lender. You need to talk to a lender. I'm not an insurance guy. You need to talk to them. And it's like, again, I get it. You don't want to get yourself into trouble by suggesting whatever, but it doesn't mean you can't, eventually they're going to stop calling you. They're just going to call the insurance guy and stop. And the whole goal of this, everything that we're talking about, whether it be social media or whether it be knowing your market or whether it be whatever, is you are trying to frame yourself as a realtor, as the expert in your field. And you are trying to make people make sure that when it comes time to buy or sell their house, you are the first person that they think of. And every one of these things plays a role in that. Your presence on social media, your knowledge base, your understanding of your market, all of that plays a role into the same goal, which is just, I need people to call me when they think about buying and selling, because that's the goal. When you go through, I'm sure you know this, Dan, you go through, a year of real estate school and you're studying contracts and you're going through all the addendums and you're learning about all the law associated to it. And then you come out, you're like, man, I got all this down. And then somebody comes along and says, well, you don't even know the game yet. You're like, what do you mean? What's the game? Well, the game is make your phone ring. That's the game. And you can understand everything there is to know about a contract, but if your phone ain't ringing, it ain't helping nothing.
Yeah. I love that.
This is a lead generation. This is a lead generation business, not the real estate business.
No, it is not. And that's why stuff like this plays such a big role. And you have to find your lane in social media or content creation or whatever you want to call it, because you got to stay in front of people. And even if it just starts, you're just putting up a picture and you're, whatever. And, one of the things, my wife's a realtor actually. And she had a thing that she did right when we first started doing it. And it wasn't on purpose, because I gave her a hard time because you make $150,000 a year and you don't do anything. Like, I don't understand what's going on here, but what she won't ever watch this. I don't worry about it. But what she was doing is she was on Facebook all the time, because she's a mom. We got 2 kids and they're, taking school pictures and all this other stuff. And she's on there, but she's raised in the South. She's real polite and real sweet. And so she's always commenting. She's always like, oh, that's, they're getting so big. And, oh, that trip looks like so much fun. And, oh, congratulations on your graduation. And just constantly, but that's just because who she was. Like, that's just her nature. Right. Yeah. And she would always get people calling. And I'm like, what? I don't understand. Like, you don't post anything online very rarely. You don't promote yourself as a realtor. We don't even really go out that much. Like, I don't understand why these people are calling you. And I began to realize that it was because of her interaction. And so when you interact with people online, whether it's just commenting, liking, whatever it is, the reciprocation that comes back is massive, because then when you actually post something, because she would from time to time post a picture of kids or whatever, but it would have, 400 likes. It's got 50 comments, because she's replying to every comment, doing everything all the way through, which keeps bumping it up in the algorithm and keeps interaction going. But all that does is, again, everybody knew she was a realtor. Everybody knew that's what she did. And so she just stayed in front of people online as much as possible. And she wasn't even doing it on purpose. So it's like, even if you don't want to make videos and you don't want to create content and you don't want to go through all that hassle, you can still go online and interact. And just that interaction can have a huge sway in your business as well.
That's huge. I love that. And it's the simple things. It's just caring, actually caring, right? Going out there, doing your thing, give a shit. Yeah. I mean, there was a day and age where, there's a day and age where there are bots that did that shit automatically. That's how my wife and I met on Instagram. Her bot commented on mine and I commented back. And then, but now you have to do it and have to be authentic. So I know we're getting closer to the end of the show here. I want to be respectful of everyone's time. And I saw you have a YouTube channel, and just really quick, as far as like a lane for an agent to utilize YouTube, I know that's becoming more and more popular. Dan's did a good job at that. You have your show. And it looks like you're utilizing YouTube. Can you earn business from YouTube as one of our final questions? I'm really curious about the success you've had with that process.
I don't know that you can earn business necessarily. I mean, you can. Don't get me wrong. Yes, you can. If you're good and you've dialed in your system, like, I'm not the greatest when it comes to my tile, my title pages, my SEO words. Like, YouTube is right now for me is just a place where I can dump all my content until I figure out how to make it better. Like what Dan was saying about how he went and kind of scrubbed everything, redid stuff to kind of put it. I may get to that point eventually. I'm not there yet, just because, like I said originally, the focus of my content creation is nothing more than staying in front of the people that I already know. But what I will say is what YouTube has done is it has trained me to pay attention. And what I mean by that is now when I go online, I'm looking for ideas and I'm looking for ways to just be just a little bit better, right? Just, can I do this one thing a little bit better? Can I do this one thing a little bit better? Let me make let me learn how to use Canva so I can create a tile myself and know how it works. Now, I do think you need to outsource everything, and I agree with Dan for that. But I also think, kind of like my taxes, I don't do my taxes, but I still understand how they work, because I got to make sure that who's doing the work for me is doing the right thing. So knowledge is such a big key, and the internet is so great. I know a lot of us use it for cat videos and, to pass the time, and it gets a bad rap because everybody's like, oh, well, I spent 8.5 hours on TikTok and I fell down a rabbit hole. Look, that happens to me too. The difference is my rabbit hole is how to create content. My rabbit hole is how to invest in crypto. And those are my rabbit holes. It's not, funniest cat video. So you create the world that you want. And so the benefit of YouTube, the benefit of all this is that you're fashioning the world that you want to see. So if you want to be successful, if you want to sell, if you want to, be the top of your industry, then learn. Educate yourself, find out more information, start a YouTube channel. It's not going to be great. It's not going to be perfect, but who cares? Learn, figure it out. Everything. What's the saying? Rome wasn't built in a day. Like, it's incremental steps all the way through. Have you guys read Atomic Habits? It's a big popular book. Everybody's
I think I have.
So that's one of my favorite books, because it breaks down the fact that we are basically computers. Okay. Our brain does 90% of your day is automatic. You wake up, you brush your teeth, you create, you go to the bathroom, you put your socks on, like everything you do is always the same. Right. So, but you can program yourself. You can create habits for yourself that put you in a place where you're going to start doing things that you want to do to achieve your goals. I'll give you a quick example. So when I first read that book, I wanted to get more active. I mean, I was working out, but I was like everybody else, work out a little bit, not work out a little bit. So I was like walking my son to school every day, or just across the street. So it wasn't far. And I was getting up at like 6:00. Well, I'm awake and I'm walking around like, well, I might as well just like get my body going. And so like I've found this guy named Andrew Huberman online, which I found on YouTube, and he talked about getting motion in daylight. So I'm reading about all that. I'm like, okay, so I'm gonna start walking. So I start walking. I have a driveway that's a circle drive. So I'm just like walking around my driveway. And then I'm like, well, I'm out here and I'm doing this. So first I started listening to books. I'm like, all right, let's listen to some books. And then I got kind of tired of that. So I was like, well, I need to start making content. So then I just started videoing myself walking in circles and talking about whatever was on my mind. And then I refined that. I was like, all right, well, now I'm going to make it a script. And I wrote it out every day. And then I started recording that. And so like every day now I create a reel just about every single morning where I'm walking in my driveway talking about mortgages, finance. I talk about UFOs. I talk about crypto. I talk about AI. I talk about whatever, right? Because it's a habit that I'm trying to create to get my day started. So I'm putting importance on my physical health. I'm putting importance on posting content. I'm putting importance on educating myself. I'm putting importance on writing because I have to write my script out every day when I do it. So all of these things, I'm programming my brain to do this every day. Am I perfect at it? Am I 100%? Hell no. I fall off. I'm not great at it, but I'm learning and I'm getting a little bit better every day. So my hope is, in 10 or 15 years, when everything's robotic and AI is in control, maybe I'll have some value.
Wow. Well, this is good, man. It was funny. We just started the episode off with the whole blockchain thing, and then it went in a really good direction because that was a really cool things to talk about, tying into our episode 167. And yeah, I think there's a lot for our viewers and listeners to take away from that. So get in your lane, do what you love, outsource the rest of shit, and get in your driveway and walk around in circles and film shit.
Right. Just get a little better every day. Stay consistent, get a little bit better every single day, and things work out. And don't wallow in your misery. I got a t-shirt. It's my favorite shirt. I didn't wear it today, but it says, worry about yourself. Have you all seen that video of the little girl online where she's like putting her seatbelt on and she's like 3 or 4 and her dad's like, you need help? And she's like, no, worry about yourself. So like, just focus on you. And it seems like everything else, tends to take care of itself.
Let's go. Well, man, Mike, that's awesome, dude. We appreciate you being on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Definitely was a good episode, man. Thanks so much for your time today.
No, I appreciate it, man. I appreciate you guys having me on.
Yep. Of course. Dan, as always, thanks for co-hosting.
Yeah, this has been great. Yeah. Love it.
Awesome. And thanks to all our viewers and listeners, as it is our intention for you to take something from today's episode, apply to your business and more massive success. Comment below. What the hell did you learn? Are you going to start walking in circles and filming yourself? Going to read a new book? What's up? Follow Mike. Links down below. See you guys all in the next one.
Appreciate it.